The Edmonton Oilers host the LA Kings for the first matchup between the two Pacific Division foes since their 7-game playoff series of a year ago. We discuss the matchup on a Locked On crossover special. I'm Eddie Garcia, host of Locked On LA Kings. He is Brett Holden, the host of Locked On Oilers. And Brett, thanks for joining us on the eve of this Pacific Division matchup. First time they've met this season. I'm sure it's not quite as big of a matchup for you guys because last year you went on to bigger and better things and made it to the Western Conference Finals, where the Kings obviously their season ended in that 7-game series, Game 7, up in Edmonton. What I guess the first question would be: you kind of made a gesture with your head there that made me think maybe I'm wrong. Is this kind of a important matchup or a big matchup up in Edmonton?
Yeah, I think it is the Edmonton Oilers' biggest issue. And thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. But yes, no, I really think that this might be a little more difficult. I think for the Edmonton Oilers than a lot of people are talking about. I was just coming back home, and on the radio they're talking about Cal Peterson's in net. And, he's got this save percentage and the expected save for this and that. And you go, well, first of all, you don't know the Edmonton Oilers because they just lost. Kochetkov hasn't lost once in his career yet. But the Edmonton Oilers have issues with goaltenders that aren't supposed to be all that. And I'm a big Cal Peterson guy. The Edmonton Oilers' biggest issue has been consistency so far this year. And, well, if there's anything that the Edmonton Oilers might need is a win right now, and especially against a really good Los Angeles Kings team, I think it's going to be much more difficult than people are really etching this out to be. By the way, just before we get started, I know you are with the Kings. I just wanted to pull this out and congratulate LAFC for y'all. Massive victory. I have the Dodgers and the
Yeah,
LAFC
I noticed
jersey
that.
over here as well. So I'm a big LA guy. I just want to preface that. But yes,
All right.
thank you. So thank you for letting me have my little moment there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Well, it sounds like the Oilers and the Kings may be brothers from another mother because consistency has been an issue with the Kings as well in a lot of areas. But just real quick, the records going into tonight's game: LA comes in 10-7-1, 21 points, second place in the Pacific at the moment, and the Oilers are 9-7, 18 points. They're fourth in the Pacific right now, and maybe we'll talk if we have time a little bit about the Pacific Division so far this year. But I guess the first obvious question would be it looks like the Oilers are not where a lot of us thought they would be so far at this point in the season. I know in our preseason Locked On predictions, I had them second to Calgary, and neither one of those teams are in the top 4 at the moment. So things have started off very interestingly. But like I said, fair to say the Oilers are not where people thought they would be at this point, right?
Yeah, no, exactly how we predicted, isn't it? No. But yeah, there are a lot of interesting issues with the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, the Edmonton Oilers did lose Evander Kane and will have him out of the lineup for a very long time. Kyler Yamamoto, A, hasn't really been healthy, and B, hasn't been the player the Edmonton Oilers needed. So they're kind of having to run a makeshift top 6, and really it's a top 4 plus Puljujärvi and whoever you want to put next to Leon Draisaitl. Tonight is going to be Warren Foegele, but I feel like knowing Jay Woodcroft here, I don't think it's going to end up as Warren Foegele as the second line winger there by the end of the night. Then they're not really getting contributions from the top or bottom 6 all the time. Last game, Tyson Barrie scored the first 2 goals, so that was big for them. And the big win against the Florida Panthers, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl only got 1 point in that game. So they can do it, but there's just too many real issues, really, that make Edmonton Oilers fans sit there and go, yeah, the Edmonton Oilers are going to win this game for sure.
So I guess just judging by some of what you said and looking at the stats, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are doing what you expect them to do. They're pulling their end of the bargain. The rest of the guys need to step up and support them because even as great as those two guys are, this is hockey and it's not a two-man game, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%, 100%. And I constantly hear people going, well, why is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins playing next to Connor McDavid? Why is Jesse Puljujärvi playing next to Connor McDavid? The interesting thing is that Leon and Connor supposedly asked management to keep Jesse Puljujärvi, that they want him to be on the team and they enjoy actually playing with him. That's all nice and everything, but you gotta produce. And that is the big, like you said, Connor and Leon are doing what everybody expects them to do. At the start of the season, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had more goals than Leon Draisaitl at one point. Ryan McLeod was tied with Leon Draisaitl with goals. Now we're 16 games into the season, and the Edmonton Oilers are starting to look like the Edmonton Oilers with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. It's I should say the depth is starting to look like what it normally does. And heading into this season, that was the big thing. You got Evander Kane here. You got all these great guys. And Holloway's going to burst into the lineup, and you've gotten none of it yet. And that is the big thing. I think Jay Woodcroft has to figure out how to get the most out of the players not named Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah. So you mentioned Evander Kane, and I'm sure a lot of people know this very scary injury where he took the skate blade to the wrist, a severe cut, he said, down to the bone. And I've seen the pictures of him where his arm is like completely immobilized and wrapped up, and it's something you can't move. So he's obviously going to be out for quite a while. How is that affecting the top six?
It's take your bets on who's going to play with Leon Draisaitl, and it really ruins the consistency of the top six. The injury to Kyler Yamamoto has also accelerated that type of worry almost, because you're sitting there and going, okay, well, you're not getting top 6 minutes from a guy who should be in the top six, and now you're already struggling for secondary scoring. So who are you going to put in there? I'm not genuinely, I said this as a joke, but I wouldn't be surprised if Klim Kostin at a point was playing on the second line with Leon Draisaitl. That is the issue that this comes into. And that going into the season, again, everybody was talking about the depth, and even coming out of the preseason, guys like James Hamblin, Luke Esposito, Tyler Benson finally looked like he was getting into his groove in the NHL, and then he got injured again. So it has really had a ripple effect on who's not only playing in the top six, but also who's playing in the bottom six. And now Dylan Holloway is lining up in the fourth line when everybody thought he was going to be playing in the top six and really contributing. Guys playing 6 minutes a game. And it's much more of a detriment than people really realize. I think it honestly may force the Edmonton Oilers' hand into making a trade.
One of the big reasons why the Oilers eliminated the Kings last season in the playoffs was how much better their power play was than the LA Kings. Is the power play still running at a high clip for the Oilers? Is that still something that's been a big advantage for them so far this season as opposed to some of their opponents?
Oh yeah, 100%. And the issue is the Edmonton Oilers penalty kill. So special teams has really played into the factor of the Edmonton Oilers games and all of them. And once the Edmonton Oilers get on that power play, I mean, let's be real. You're there's only so much you can do when the puck's going from Connor McDavid to Leon Draisaitl to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to Zach Hyman to Tyson Barrie, and you're sitting there going, I don't know what to do. So that is the one plus side for the Edmonton Oilers right now, sitting third in the league in the power play, as they should. And that is every team you hear that plays against the Oilers, I always go, you got to stay disciplined because you don't want to go up against their power play. And there's a reason why. And yes, it is the one decent thing or one consistent thing for the Edmonton Oilers where you're going, okay, we're on the power play. Maybe there's a chance. So, yeah.
Got to ask you about the goaltending, because going into the season, you acquired Jack Campbell to take over for the aging Mike Smith. And a lot of people, including myself, thought that was going to be an upgrade in net. Has that proven to be the case so far? And what is the goaltending situation like for your Oilers?
Yeah.
Not so
Here's my
much.
stance. Yeah. My stance on it, or how I feel about the Edmonton Oilers goaltending, is that more specifically with Jack Campbell, I think Jack Campbell, the numbers are maybe leading a little astray. I'm not going to say they're lying because numbers don't lie. But Jack Campbell has been making the saves, or at least before the last couple of games, I should say, was making the saves that he should should make, really. Yes, sometimes the Edmonton Oilers were down, but then when it came to keeping the Edmonton Oilers in it, he was there to make the big save. He was there to make the initial save, and then there's only so much you can do when you're lying on your stomach after basically tearing your groin after letting a guy have a breakaway from center ice and left him for dead, basically. And that's how I kind of feel with Jack Campbell before the last couple of games. Now, especially against Carolina, oh my goodness, I genuinely think there is something wrong with the stringing of that man's glove. I think he has genuinely had 2 goals go through his glove. And I don't say that figuratively, literally through the laces of his glove. And then you sit there as a goaltender and go, what can I do? It literally feels like everything is going through me. And then you see him go into the press and go, I've been pathetic, and say this, that, and the other thing, which isn't which wasn't not expected. Those are words that should come out of someone's mouth. But he has always done it. In fact, Luke Gadzik, a former Edmonton Oiler and a former teammate of Jack Campbell's, said on Hockey Central before one of the Oilers games, he said that when they were both teammates in Texas in the AHL with the Texas Stars, they had to have closed door meetings, a couple of them with Jack, about talking to the media about all this, putting it very poorly. And we're still seeing it today. So could he be in his own head? Maybe, but it doesn't help as well that Stuart Skinner has the 3rd best save percentage amongst goaltenders who has played at least 5 games or more. It doesn't help. But right now, to be honest with you, Stuart Skinner's getting the start tonight, and I think rightfully so.
Well, we've talked about the forwards, we've talked about the special teams, we talked about the goaltending. I guess the obvious final question would be about the defense. It's kind of always been, from the outside looking in, the biggest point of contention with the Oilers. We know they have enough offense, but can they keep the other team from scoring as many goals as well? So defensively, how have the Oilers looked so far this year?
Spoiler alert, not great. Not great. You know what? At times I sat there and went, you know what? Cody Ceci's our most stable defenseman. Well, in the last couple of games, not so much. It has been the guy that everybody loves to hate, Darnell Nurse, who has been the most stable defenseman for the Oilers. Heck, if he can play goalie, I'm behind it. But even in a game against, I forget which game it was, but the Edmonton Oilers were up late 3-2 against a very good team in a game that they needed to win, and Darnell Nurse wasn't on the ice. In fact, it was against Washington, and that is when Warren Fogle got the game-winning block and won the game for the Oilers. He also scored the game winner, but that's okay. The Edmonton Oilers defense has been, I think really it speaks to the season that the Oilers have had, has been inconsistent. Ryan Murray, first game of the year, he looked like a 2nd overall draft pick. And then ever since then, he has been anything but. Markus Niemelainen is starting to figure it out here, but the key word is starting to. He's had some lapses. In fact, the game against the New Jersey Devils, where the Oilers allowed 2 goals in 7 seconds, how that's possible, I don't even know. It was him who misread Bratt and let him come in from the blue line all the way through. Brett Kulak has been very off and on, not been the defenseman that everybody expected him to be from the trade and from re-signing him as well. Evan Bouchard is missing, and I never thought I'd say this in my life, is missing Duncan Keith so bad. so bad. I don't understand what has happened with Evan Bouchard. And it may sound a little over the top, but it almost seems like all of a sudden he's not ready anymore. And you go, well, you were supposed to be the guy who was going to take the reins of the power play quarterback and this big offensive guy from Tyson Barrie, because the Edmonton Oilers are going to trade Tyson Barrie at some point. Whatever that's for, we'll see, but he is going to be that next power play guy. And the tentativeness that I've seen from Evan Bouchard is the tentativeness from a player who has played 3 games in the NHL. I'm very concerned about Evan Bouchard, and that kind of goes for the rest of the defense, really.
All right, so we're going to pass the puck over to Brett in a second, let him fire some shots away at me. But first, I need to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. You got to try the new reimagined Built Bar flavors: cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper, and white chocolate peppermint granola. If you haven't tried Built Bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever built. They are revolutionizing nutrition. Excuse me.
Oh, one of those days.
I told you the voice was not doing too good today. I've been battling something, you guys, so I apologize for that. I apologize to our friends at Built Bar as well. Built Bar is revolutionizing nutrition as we know it, with 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and just 130 calories. You're probably wondering which flavor is the best. Well, try a mixed box and get all 5 flavors and figure it out for yourself. Get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at built.com. Again, got to try these delicious Built Bars. They're amazing. Go to built.com, use LOCKEDON15, get 15% off of your purchase. All right. Oh, my God. I'm going to take a drink, and Brett, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, no, it's all good. I have a bunch of interesting questions for you.
I'm doing so well, Brett. I was doing so well. And all of a sudden, my throat was like, hey, man, I need to say something. So anyway.
I'm right here. Don't forget about me. No, you're all good. You're all good. Hey, it's that time of the year. You're all good. Yes, no, I do have a couple of interesting questions. I'm going to start at an interesting point here because I am an avid fantasy guy. And I won't lie, this started a couple of years ago, and this was back when you could get younger players and draft them and keep them on your team for a little while. And you know what? I always liked this Russian international who became an American and played for in the States for a little while, and actually played for the U.S. program as well. And that's Arthur Kaliyev. And now he has had a very solid start to the season. Maybe not the forward you thought I would start off with here, but I think he's an unbelievable case in the NHL here. The guy has a shot like nobody else in this league and really is a very solid player. I mean, he crunched Connor McDavid off the puck. Don't want to talk about it. But he has a lot of things here. I'm taking a look at the lines and I'm shocked to see him currently on the 4th line right now. How much can people read into that? And especially considering is he even on the first power play unit as well? Or is this the second?
He is the main weapon on the second power play unit. They try and run things through him at that right point shot and let him, as you said, it's no secret he has one of the better shots in the NHL. So that's where he's gotten a few of his goals. The power play, if you ask me about it, I'm sure you will, has been an issue for the Kings again this year. But he has been one of the bright spots. And certainly, again, on that second power play unit, if you're watching the game, they're looking to set him up for that shot. He does have a great shot, and we all know it. And he's gotten to the point where he's so comfortable as an NHLer now. He understands that he needs to shoot more. Don't defer. You're a weapon. Use it. It is interesting him on the 4th line because before the emergence of Gabe Velarde, we thought Arthur Kaliyev would be a guy who early in the season would fill in for Victor Arvidsson, who was coming off back surgery. But he's been on the 3rd, 4th line because, Victor Arvidsson's on the 2nd line. You've got Adrian Kempe on the 1st line. Gabe Velarde is also, stepped up as well. So there kind of hasn't been a spot for him. So it is surprising to see him on the 4th line. Although I will say this, Todd McClellan likes to go to the 4th line when he needs a spark. So they get a few more minutes than maybe your typical 4th line does. But yeah, it is surprising to see a guy with that kind of a shot on the fourth line. But he is, like I said, the main weapon on that second power play unit. So that's where they're kind of looking to utilize that shot as much as possible.
Good, good. No, and I've always loved Kaliev. I think he's a phenomenal talent here. You mentioned who I wanted to bring up next, and that's Gabriel Velarde. What a start to the season for Gabriel Velarde this year. 10 goals, 5 assists, 15 points in 18 games. Not at all, I think, the start to the season that anybody but maybe Gabriel Velarde's mother may have predicted for him here. What has it been like seeing Gabriel Velarde play this year, and especially the rise of Gabriel Velarde this year?
It's been so fun and so surprising because he was a guy who they signed him to a 1-year deal in the offseason, basically kind of a prove it deal. It's funny as fans, we see guys who are first round picks and we expect them to be immediate impact players a lot of times. And sometimes it takes time. We saw that with Adrian Kempe. It took him a year or two longer than a lot of fans wanted it to. And it looks like that's the same case for Gabe Velarde. I hope Kings fans will keep that in mind when they start to criticize Quentin Byfield. It takes a little longer sometimes for guys, but once they get it, then they start to show the talent that made them first round picks. So Gabe Velarde came into this season, like I said, I really think everybody knew it was a make or break it season for him. And for him to come in and surprisingly in that situation to, it seems like, take a deep breath, relax, understand that, okay, he's had a little time to transition from center to wing now. He's coming in, even though he should have a ton of pressure on him, it almost looks like he's more relaxed and he's just letting his game go and letting his talent show. And they said in the offseason, he really, kind of took a step back and evaluated, and he was a guy that put a ton of pressure on himself. And it's interesting, and I'm sure he would tell you this. Sometimes you have to take a step back, take a deep breath, and just say, I'm going to play. I'm not going to worry about anything else. And just, I know how good I can be. Just go out there and do it. And he's had so much confidence. He's had so much fun. He's playing with a smile on his face. It's been an amazing transformation for him, and the talent has shown. He's letting his talent show. He's got great hands. He's got good size. He can win puck battles behind the net, and obviously he has now been elevated to the top line. I mean, there's no greater compliment that you can give a player to say, you are on our top line. You're going to get more minutes, and we believe in you. And he's delivered. He's gone a little bit cold of late, but there was no way he was going to stay on that pace where he was on. I think he was on pace for like 50 goals or something early on. That's ridiculous. But I would say at this point, he's looks like a solid 30 goal scorer this year. And if you would have said, hey, Kings fans, what would you think about Gabe Velarde scoring 30 this year? We would all be out of our minds thinking, are you kidding me? But no, it's been a great thing to see. It's so much fun to see him playing with the confidence that he is. And it's just awesome to see him kind of blossom into the player we thought he could be.
Yeah, and I just brought up here my mock draft from the 2017 draft here. I had Gabriel Velarde going in the Cale Makar spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really, I think that's an attribute to his skill. I mean, I remember the day of the draft, there were whispers of people going, could Velarde be going first overall? Is this the guy? I mean, he ended up going 13th overall, if I'm not mistaken here. But I had him going ahead of guys like Casey Middlestat, obviously Cale Makar. I was eating my words there, but I did know his skill. Nick Suzuki, Elias Pettersson. I mean, this is a guy who had a lot of pedigree coming into the NHL, and I'm really pumped to see him really start to figure it out here. I want to now move to the defense, and of course, in the series between the Edmonton Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings, the Kings were missing a very vital piece to their defenseman, and that is future Hall of Famer Drew Doughty. How much has his presence this year really helped out the young defensive core? I mean, guys like Sean Dursey, Matt Roy, Mikey Anderson, which right now is his defensive partner. Brant Clark has been thrown into the lineup here and there as well. So how important is he to this young defensive core?
I mean, he's very important. He and Alex Edler are the two old guys, obviously, back on defense. But It's the team defense has really been an issue for the Kings so far this year. Starting the year off, playing allowing 6 goals against Minnesota, allowing 5-6 goals against Pittsburgh, and there were a lot of lapses defensively. And the Kings have been dealing with that. They had a really poor defensive game in their last game against Calgary. It's great to have Drew back. I think he's invaluable as far as, his leadership. Now that Dustin Brown is retired, he's taken on a bigger role with that. He is still one of the leading players in the NHL as far as time on ice. He's running the first power play unit. So it's great to have him back. I don't know, to be totally honest, if it's as big and as impactful as a lot of us thought it would be because of the issues we're having defensively. But I think overall, yes, we're glad to have him back. He's he's a fan favorite. The enthusiasm he plays with and just what he brings to the ice, I think, is still a big asset for the Kings. But if you're the Oilers, you see the defense. The Kings have been playing team defense. By the way, it's not just about the blue liners; it's about everyone. There have been some major lapses this year for the Kings. There have been some times where they have allowed, like against Calgary, kind of a microcosm of the season defensively. They allowed 4 first period goals, and all those goals were grade A chances, 2-on-1s, guys in the slot not being covered. Jonathan Quick had no chance. And if you see that game, you're like, Quick allowed 6 goals. He stinks. It wasn't the case. He actually played really well, but he got no support from his defense. And we've seen that happen probably 4 or 5 times this year. And then they've had games where they've held good teams like Tampa Bay and Toronto to a goal. And you're like, what? Well, okay, wait. We clearly we can do it, but why is the consistency not there? And we don't have an answer for that yet. If that gets figured out with the way the Kings have improved offensively this year, I think they could be a pretty solid team, and be a playoff team. But these lapses, and a 7-game series, it's about who's the more consistent team over 7 games. And right now, I don't have a lot of confidence that the Kings, if you play a 7-game series, that they're going to be the more consistent team. So again, it sounds like the Oilers and the Kings have a lot in common with the consistency defensively. But the one thing that again seems to be the clear thing in favor of Edmonton is the power play, because the Kings power play is still not good enough at all. So the more things change, the more things stay the same, it looks like, for the LA Kings this year.
2 more quick questions for you, and you kind of took a lot of the words out of my mouth here, but again, Jonathan Quick started that game against the Calgary Flames, 4 goals in the first period, and if I'm not mistaken, I remember watching that game, it was 6-5 final.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and I remember after the end of the first period, they were talking on the panel here, talking about does Cal Peterson come in and stuff like that. Cal Peterson gets a start against the Oilers tonight. At least he was the first goaltender off at practice today. How do you feel with the goaltending tandem? How do you feel with Cal Peterson in general? I know a lot of people go, and it's difficult because people always have to preface, because people don't understand when you go, he's the next Jonathan Quick. People go, he's not Jonathan Quick. He's learning. He's basically being groomed to be the next Jonathan Quick. Now, there you go. But you sit here and you hear all this negative stuff around Cal Peterson. Again, I'm a positive fan of Cal Peterson. I like Cal Peterson, but what's your feeling with the whole goaltending situation in general? How do you feel about the eventual transition of Cal Peterson, and how do you think everything's been going so far?
Going into the season, it was the biggest question mark I had for the Kings, and it has not been answered so far. Jonathan Quick is the guy, but he can't start 60 games.
No,
that can't happen, because at the end of the year, he's going to be worn out and he's going to be tired. And, you want your number 1 goalie to be ready to go for the start of the playoffs. So Cal Peterson, 2 years in a row now, he has been looked upon to be someone to take that next step, to show that he can eventually be a number 1 goalie. Hasn't happened. He has not been consistent enough. His performances have been spotty. He's not gotten the support that he needs as well. But bottom line is, do I feel confident Cal Peterson is the goalie of the future for the Kings? I do not. He's still signed for 2 more years at $5 million a year. He's going to be paid like a number one goalie. And right now, he's clearly not close to being a number one goalie. So the Kings are hoping that sooner rather than later he can get on track because they want him to start some more games and help Jonathan Quick, pull the rope. But so far it hasn't happened. And I would have to say at this point, looking at the resume of GM Rob Blake, this has been the biggest misstep so far in investing in Cal Peterson, thinking he was the guy that was going to take over sooner rather than later. And right now, he's not ready to take over. So it's Jonathan Quick, but they hope Cal can find his game at some point because they need him to carry some of the load down the stretch.
I am looking at the goaltending prospects from the Los Angeles Kings right now. Phoenix Copley, shout out Phoenix Copley, and son of Edmonton Oilers legend Jussi Juho Markkanen. So thanks for that. Thank you for employing him with an .890 save percentage so far right now. But we all know young goaltenders and other leagues and save percentages don't always coincide. My final question here, I'm going to go back up to the forwards. And Kevin Fiala, that was a massive addition for the Kings this offseason. I love Kevin Fiala. I think he is one of the more underrated players this year. How has he been so far for the LA Kings?
He's been very good. He has every once in a while he'll take a bad penalty, but it's something you can live with because of his skill. It is interesting that he started off on the top line with Anze Kopitar and Adrian Kempe, and the emergence of Gabe Velarde has knocked him down to the third line. And you might see that and be like, oh, you're paying $7 million for a third line winger. Of course, the flip side is we're paying $1 million for a top line winger in Gabe Velarde, if you want to look at it that way. But he's actually, when he's being moved down to the third line, has actually shown his game to take off at that point. I don't know if it was a fact of maybe he was deferring more, playing with Kopitar and Kempe, felt like he needed to be a little bit more of a distributor. Now that he's on the third line, he probably feels like, hey, I'm clearly the main guy on this third line, and I'm going to play like it, and he has. So he's actually played very, very well for the Kings. We didn't expect him to be on the third line, but it hasn't hurt the team at all. Matter of fact, it's made them deeper and more difficult to defend. I'm sure if you're a head coach for the Oilers or another team and you're like, who am I going to send out to defend the third line with Kevin Fiala on it? That provides some matchup problems. So Kevin Fiala has been a positive so far. And it is surprising that he's on the third line, but it's worked out very well.
It's about distribution, right? 100%. And we're throwing out Klim Kostin, baby. It's Klim Kostin season up in Edmonton.
Well, Brett, thank you so much for joining us today. Looking forward to this matchup against the Edmonton Oilers tonight. I'm sure you will be breaking it all down on tomorrow's Locked On Oilers show, as I will be on tomorrow's Locked On LA Kings show. So it's always a fun matchup, but even though you're kind of on the edge of your seat every time the puck goes to Connor McDavid as a opposing fan, but should be a fun game tonight. And I won't wish you good luck because I won't mean it, but may the best team win. How about that? May the best team win.
I'm behind that. May the best team win.
All right. He is Brett Holden. I'm Eddie Garcia. You can obviously see Brett on Locked On Oilers. Be sure to check out his channel, and we'll talk to you tomorrow with another episode of Locked On Kings. Brett, thank you. And we say go Kings go at the end of this one. Is it go Oilers go at the end? Is that what you guys say up there in Edmonton?
We say play La Bamba, baby.
All right. That's a good one. All right. Thank you, Brett. And thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed this crossover episode with Brett Holden of Locked On Oilers. I'm Eddie Garcia, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.